For 420 years, Darius ruled as the Blood King, feared, powerful, but rational. A king who killed his enemies and enforced brutal laws, but with purpose. He was the darkness, but he was held in check by his brother Valerius, the light. Then 80 years ago, a hunter's silver stake stole that light, and the Blood King became something worse, a monster. Darius, 500 years old, silver hair cascading past his shoulders, pale as moonlight, eyes like black ice, sits on an obsidian throne in a vast, cold hall. He is magnificent and terrible. At his feet, Sarah, 25, dark hair unbound, clear eyes, wearing a simple cotton nightdress, stands without trembling. Her hands twist in the fabric, hidden from her view, but her voice is steady. "So you are the monster they whisper about." She says it with detached curiosity, like a naturalist observing a specimen. Darius rises, moving with liquid grace. Each step down is deliberate, predatory. He stops inches from her, close enough to see her pulse fluttering in her throat. The hunger stirs, always present, a beast that never sleeps. "I am the end of your bloodline. I am the nightmare created when your grandfather drove silver through my brother's heart. You will be my message to your father. He will learn the meaning of loss, as I have. The blood debt passes through generations, and you are the final payment." Sarah's lips curve into a small, pitying smile, though her heartbeat betrays her terror. Revenge. It must be exhausting, carrying something so heavy for so long. Darius recoils as if struck. No one has ever pitied him. "You know nothing of what I carry. I know it's all you have. It's the only thing keeping this castle from crumbling to dust, isn't it? This grand, lonely monument to your pain. You didn't bring me here for your brother. You brought me here so you wouldn't be alone with his ghost anymore." The truth of it is so sharp, so precise, it steals the air from his lungs. He has never considered it that way. The revenge was a purpose, a fire that kept the cold of eternity at bay. Without it, he is just a thing that endures, a relic in a museum of his own making. For the first time in a century, Darius, the Blood King, the shadow of the North, is speechless. He has planned a monologue of threats, a chilling recitation of the torments she would endure, but the words turn to ash in his mouth. He has brought a lamb to the slaughter, but the lamb has looked up at him with the eyes of a seer and told him the precise geography of his soul. He cannot kill her. Not yet. To kill her now would be a concession, an admission that her words have found their mark. Breaking her spirit is no longer enough. Now, he has to prove her wrong. He has to show her that he is nothing but the monster she claimed, that his hatred is pure and vast and all-consuming. He turns away from her, the swirl of his cloak a vortex of shadow. Take her to the onyx chamber. See that she is locked in. No library access, no wandering. Basic meals only. Her suffering must be a slow, deliberate art. The words are for the guards who have been standing like statues in the corridor, their own fear a palpable scent in the air. But as he sweeps from the throne room, it is her quiet voice that follows him, not with a scream, but with a final, devastating observation that will echo in his mind for days. "You're not very good at this, are you?" The onyx chamber is less a cell and more a forgotten queen's suite, but for the first 2 weeks it is a true prison. The heavy oak door is locked from the outside. Guards stand watch in the corridor. A vast canopied bed draped in black silk dominates the room, its posts carved into the shapes of sleeping dragons. A fireplace, cold and cavernous, is set into one wall. The window is too high and too narrow for escape. This is genuine captivity. Sarah runs a hand over the velvet of a chaise lounge, the fabric cool and smooth beneath her fingers. She is a prisoner, stolen from her home to be a pawn in a game of ancient grief. She should be terrified. She should be clawing at the door, weeping, praying for a rescue that will likely never come. but fear is a luxury her father's training burned out of her. A memory surfaces. Young Sarah, no more than 12, sits in a dark cellar surrounded by vampire artifacts, silver stakes, vials of what might be blood. Her father's voice echoes from above. Fear is a choice, Sarah. You can feel it and still move. You can let it fill your chest and still think clearly. Again. The door closes. Darkness. The child's breathing becomes steady, controlled. Back in the present, Sarah sits on the bed. Her hands are shaking. She allows herself this, alone in the dark. Fear is their nourishment, second only to blood. To show fear is to feed the beast, and Sarah has no intention of feeding this particular beast anything but confusion. For the first 2 weeks, she sees no one but a silent, trembling servant girl who brings her meals on a silver tray and flees without making eye contact. The door opens only for these deliveries, then locks again. Sarah eats every bite. She sleeps soundly in the decadent bed. She paces the length of her chamber like a caged cat, not with frantic energy, but with a thoughtful, measured stride. She is waiting. She is also watched. In his study, Darius stares into a dark mirror, an obsidian surface that shows him her chamber. He watches her pace. He watches her sit by the cold fireplace, her arms wrapped around herself. He watches her press her ear to the door, listening. He is looking for cracks, for the first signs of despair. They do not come. On the 15th night, he visits her in a different way. He does not use the door. He feeds first, draining 2 goblets of blood from his reserves, ancient stores kept in the deep vaults of the castle. The feeding is mechanical, joyless, but necessary. The hunger around her is becoming unbearable. He appears in her chamber, coalescing from the shadows near the fireplace, a column of darkness that resolves itself into his tall, imposing form. Sarah is sitting on the chaise, staring at the locked door. She does not startle at his appearance. She simply turns her head and looks at him. Her face is pale, and there are shadows under her eyes that were not there before. 2 weeks of captivity have left their mark, but her gaze is still clear, still assessing. You look tired. His voice is low, satisfied. Finally, a crack in her armor. I am tired. Of being locked in this room like an animal. You said my suffering would be an art. This is just tedious. The sheer audacity of it leaves him momentarily adrift. She should be begging for mercy, not complaining about boredom. You are a prisoner. Prisoners do not make requests. Then what's the point of keeping me alive? If you're just going to lock me away until I waste away from monotony, you might as well kill me now and get it over with. It would be faster. He moves closer, the predator in him rising. She does not flinch, but he can hear her heartbeat accelerate, a rapid drumbeat of fear she will not show. You want freedom? Then earn it. Show me fear. Show me despair. Show me that you understand the gravity of your situation. I understand it perfectly. You're a very old, very lonely king who's forgotten how to be anything other than angry. And you brought me here because you thought breaking me would make you feel whole again. But it won't. You know it won't. That's why you're stalling. The words are silver stakes, each one finding its mark. He could kill her right now. He could end this infuriating conversation with a single motion. But he does not. Instead, he makes a decision that surprises even himself. You want to leave this room? Fine. You may have access to the library. 1 hour each day, escorted by guards. Do not mistake this for kindness. It is a test. Fail it, and you will never leave this chamber again. He vanishes back into the shadows before she can respond, but he hears her whispered words as he dissolves. Thank you. The gratitude in her voice is genuine, and it unsettles him more than her defiance ever could. The library becomes her sanctuary. It is a vast, circular room, with shelves that climb 3 stories high, filled with volumes in languages both living and dead. She is escorted there each day by 2 guards, who stand like statues by the door, watching her every movement. She reads voraciously: philosophy, poetry, history, mythology. She is searching for something, though she does not yet know what. On the 3rd day in the library she finds it, a slim volume of pre-Roman poetry, bound in cracked leather. On the flyleaf, in elegant script, is an inscription: "To my brother Darius, may you always find the words when I cannot. With all my love, Valerius." She traces the name with her finger. Valerius, his brother, the ghost that haunts this place. She carefully replaces the book on the shelf, but the name stays with her. That night, when Darius appears in her chamber again, emerging from the shadows by her fireplace, she is ready. His name was Valerius, wasn't it? Darius freezes. The name is a phantom stake twisting in his chest. Do not speak of things you cannot possibly comprehend. Then make me comprehend. You say you're doing this for him. Tell me about him. What was he like? The question hangs in the air between them, more powerful than any threat, more intimate than any touch. He could refuse. He could rage at her for daring to speak his brother's name. But the words have been locked inside him for 80 years, and they want to be free. He was everything I was not. I was the warrior, the tactician, the one who made the hard decisions. He was the poet, the dreamer, the one who saw beauty in everything. I built this fortress to be impregnable. He filled it with art and music and light. I ruled through fear. He ruled through love. He pauses, the memories flooding back. No longer ghosts, but vivid, living things. We balanced each other. I was the darkness, and he was the light that made the darkness bearable. When he died, the balance died with him. And you've spent 80 years trying to fill that void with revenge. Yes, because it was all I had left. Without it, I am just nothing. You're not nothing. You're a man who lost his brother and never learned how to grieve. So you chose rage instead, because rage is easier than sadness. Rage gives you purpose. Sadness just gives you emptiness. He stares at her, this impossible girl who sees through him so clearly. He should be angry. He should punish her for this invasion of his soul, but instead, he feels something crack inside him, a fissure in the ice that has encased his heart for decades. I will allow you access to the gardens. 1 hour each day. The guards will accompany you. He leaves before she can thank him again, before she can see the confusion and fear in his eyes. Fear not of her, but of what she is doing to him. The gardens are a graveyard of botany. Gnarled, thorny rose bushes claw at the air like skeletal hands. Stone fountains are choked with weeds and stagnant water. Statues of forgotten goddesses are green with moss, their faces streaked with what look like tears. It is a perfect physical manifestation of his soul. Sarah walks through the desolation, her guards trailing her like reluctant hounds. She does not seem dismayed. She touches a dead branch, her fingers gentle. She kneels by a patch of stubborn, overgrown ivy, studying it. She spends the full hour simply walking, observing. From a high balcony, hidden in shadow, Darius watches her. He does not understand what she is doing. The next day, she makes a request through Elspeth, the timid serving girl. She asks for gardening tools: a spade, shears, a pair of gloves. Corvus, the ancient vampire major domo who has served Darius for 300 years, brings the request to him with an expression of profound bewilderment. The prisoner, my lord, wishes to garden. Darius stares at him, certain he has misheard. Garden? She has requested tools to tend the gardens, my lord. She wishes to restore them. The absurdity of it should make him laugh. Instead, he feels something twist in his chest. A prisoner asking to bring life to his place of death. It is the most baffling act of rebellion he has ever witnessed. Give her what she asks for, but the guards are to watch her closely. If she attempts to use the tools as weapons, she is to be returned to her chamber immediately. Yes, my lord. Corvus bows and leaves, but not before Darius sees the flicker of confusion in his old red eyes. So he watches again the next day. He watches as Sarah, this hunter's granddaughter, this pawn in his game of revenge, kneels in the dirt of his dead garden and begins to work. She starts in a small, forgotten corner, clearing away the weeds with methodical patience. She prunes the dead wood from a rose bush that looks beyond saving. She works for the full hour, until her hands are covered in soil and her face is flushed with exertion. She does not look up at the balcony, where she must know he is watching. This becomes her routine. Every day she spends her hour in the garden. She coaxes a small patch of earth back to life. She finds a trickle of water from a hidden spring and clears its path to the thirsty roots. It is slow, arduous work, and it is changing everything. The servants begin to notice. Elsbeth no longer flinches when she enters Sarah's chambers. She lingers, offering hesitant smiles, sometimes even whispered comments about the weather or the quality of the bread. Sarah responds with genuine warmth, asking the girl her name, thanking her for her service. The girl blushes, unused to kindness. Within a week, Elspeth is bringing extra blankets without being asked, leaving small wildflowers on Sarah's breakfast tray. But not all the staff is warming to her. The older servants, the ones who have lived in terror for centuries, remain suspicious. They whisper in the corridors, "She is a witch. She has bewitched the girl. She will bring ruin to us all." Corvus hears these whispers and brings them to Darius one evening as he stands in his study, staring at nothing. "The household is divided, my lord. Some of the younger staff have become attached to the prisoner. They speak of her with a reverence that borders on devotion. The older staff fear her influence. There are whispers that she has ensorcelled you, that you have grown weak." Darius turns to his majordomo, his expression unreadable. "And what do you believe, Corvus?" The ancient vampire meets his gaze steadily. "I believe you have not fed from her. I believe you have not harmed her. I believe that in 2 months of captivity, she has been granted freedoms no prisoner should possess. I believe the blood debt you have carried for 80 years is slipping through your fingers. And I believe there will be consequences if you do not act soon." "What consequences?" "Lord Caius has requested an audience. He arrives tomorrow night." Darius's jaw tightens. Lord Caius is a rival vampire lord, a creature of pure ambition who has coveted Darius's territory for centuries. His presence here can mean only one thing. He senses weakness. "Let him come. I will remind him why I am king." "As you wish, my lord." But Corvus's doubt hangs in the air long after he leaves. One evening, Darius descends from his balcony and walks into the garden. The guards stiffen at his approach. Sarah does not. She is on her knees, her hands covered in soil, examining a tiny green shoot emerging from the base of the bush she has been tending. She glances up at him, a smudge of dirt on her cheek. "I think this one might make it." It's a fool's hope. This garden is dead. The soil is soured by sorrow. The soil is just soil. It doesn't know anything about sorrow. It just needs light and water and for someone to pull out the weeds. She looks up at him again, her eyes clear and direct. "It's not as complicated as you make it out to be." He stands over her, a creature of absolute power, a king in his domain, and feels utterly helpless. He could command armies, he could drain a man of life with a single touch, he could crumble stone with his will, but he cannot make a flower grow. He can only watch as this mortal girl, with nothing but her bare hands and a stubborn refusal to accept defeat, does what he thought impossible. She is nurturing life in the very heart of his undeath. "Why are you doing this?" "Because it was dying, and I don't like to see things die if I can help it, even things that belong to a monster." She gives him a small, challenging smile. "Besides, I told you I was bored." He looks from her determined, dirt-smudged face to the tiny speck of green in the dark earth. For 80 years he has been the sole master of this domain of death, but a new power is taking root in his kingdom. It is small, it is fragile, but it is undeniably alive, and it is changing everything. The memories begin to surface without his consent. They are no longer ghosts he has to summon deliberately. They are insurgents staging a coup in the quiet corridors of his mind. It happens most often when he watches her in the garden. The sight of a hand covered in soil tending a rosebush throws him back 80 years to a sun-drenched afternoon that feels like a different world, a different life. Valerius is on his knees in this very garden, though then it was a riot of color and scent. His laughter is bright and warm, a startling contrast to the eternal, silent smirk Darius now wears. You see, brother? You worry about treaties and borders. I worry about aphids. I dare say my work is more important. Beauty is the only kingdom worth ruling. Darius, ever the pragmatist, had scoffed. Beauty fades, Valerius. Power endures. His brother had just smiled, a sad, knowing smile. No, Darius, it's the other way around. Power is a season. It rises and it falls. But the memory of a perfect rose? That can last forever. He had tucked a blood-red rose into the lapel of Darius's dark coat. The scent, rich and heady, had clung to him for hours. Now, standing on his cold balcony, Darius can almost smell it again, a phantom fragrance overlaying the scent of dust and decay. The memory is so vivid it is a physical ache, a tightening in his chest so fierce he has to brace a hand against the cold stone of the balustrade. He is a creature that cannot be wounded by blade or fire, yet a simple memory can bring him to his knees. When the vision fades, he is left with the hollow echo of his own words. Power endures. What a fool he had been. His power had brought him nothing but isolation. His magnificent, enduring power had turned his home into a tomb and his heart into a stone. Valerius, with his love for transient, beautiful things, had understood the nature of eternity far better than he. That night, he does not watch her from the balcony. He descends the winding stone steps into the garden itself. The twin moons are full, bathing the valley in ethereal silver light. Sarah is still there, sitting on a stone bench she has cleared of moss, her work for the day done. She is looking up at the sky, her profile serene. She does not seem startled by his silent approach. It is as if she has come to expect his presence, his silent, brooding orbit around her. He stops a few feet from the bench, the silence stretching between them, thick with unspoken things. He loved this garden. The confession falls into the quiet air. It is easier to speak of him here, in the place that still holds the last vestiges of his brother's touch. Sarah turns her head, her expression unreadable in the pale light. You talk about him in here. In the throne room, you talk about my grandfather. In the library, you talk about history. But here, you talk about Valerius. He has not realized it, but she is right. The castle's geography has become mapped to the compartments of his mind. This was his. Everything else is mine. The power, the politics, the darkness. This was his light. And when he died, you let it go out. It is not an accusation. It is a simple statement of fact. I did not know how to tend it. I only know how to rule, how to command, how to destroy. I do not know how to grow things. You learn, you watch, you listen to what it needs, you get your hands dirty. It's the same with a garden as it is with a person, I imagine. Her gaze is steady, and he understands she is no longer talking about roses. She is talking about him. She is telling him that he too is a neglected garden, soured by sorrow, choked by the weeds of his own hatred. And she is offering him a way to tend it. The intimacy of the moment is terrifying. It is a fragile, delicate thing, this truce they have forged. He feels an overwhelming primal urge to protect it, to shelter it from the howling winds of his own nature. He takes a hesitant step closer and sits on the other end of the bench. The stone is cold beneath him, but the space between them feels charged with a strange warmth. For a long while they sit in silence, two solitary beings on a bench in a dying garden, surrounded by the ghosts of what was and the fragile possibility of what could be. He does not know how long they sit there. Time has become fluid around her, stretching and compressing in unfamiliar ways. But as he watches the slow, silent dance of the twin moons across the sky, he realizes something profound. For the first time since his brother's death, the silence is not empty. It is not a void. It is filled with her presence, a quiet, steady warmth that holds the loneliness at bay. He had brought her here to be the instrument of his revenge, but she is becoming something else entirely. She is becoming his sanctuary. He does not want to break her spirit anymore. He wants to watch her bring his garden back to life. The next evening, Lord Caius arrives. He is tall and elegant, with dark hair and eyes like polished jet. He wears his cruelty like fine clothing, comfortable and well-fitted. He is everything Darius once was. Everything Darius is supposed to still be. They meet in the throne room, the vast, cold space echoing with the weight of unspoken challenges. "Lord Caius," Darius greets him, his voice flat. "To what do I owe this unexpected visit?" Caius smiles, a predator's expression. Can an old friend not call upon a fellow lord without suspicion? "We are not friends, Caius. We are rivals separated only by a treaty neither of us particularly respects." "State your business." "Very well. The court is concerned, Darius. You have been absent from gatherings. You refuse audiences. And there are whispers that you have taken immortal prisoner, but have done nothing with her. Some wonder if you have grown soft in your solitude." Darius rises from his throne, his power flaring, the air crackling around him. The temperature in the room drops. "Do you dare question me in my own hall?" "I question nothing. I merely report what others whisper, but since I am here, perhaps I could evaluate the situation myself. Where is this prisoner who has so captured your attention? She is not your concern. Then you will not mind if I see her. To put the rumors to rest, of course. It is a test, a challenge. If Darius refuses, it will confirm weakness. If he agrees, Caius will see exactly how much Sarah has changed him. He has no good options. Very well. Corvus, bring the prisoner to the throne room." Corvus hesitates, a flicker of concern in his ancient eyes, but he bows and leaves to fetch Sarah. Minutes later, Sarah enters, flanked by guards. She is dressed in a simple gray gown, her hair pulled back. There is dirt under her fingernails from the garden. She looks small and mortal in the vast stone hall. But her gaze is steady as she takes in the scene. Darius on his throne, the elegant stranger standing below. She does not bow. She does not show fear. Caius circles her slowly, like a shark scenting blood. "So this is the hunter's granddaughter. The final payment for an old blood debt. Tell me, girl, has our dear Darius been hospitable?" "I've had worse accommodations." Caius laughs, delighted. "Spirit! How refreshing. Tell me, Darius, when do you plan to complete your revenge? When do you send her broken body back to her father as your message?" "Soon," Darius says, but the word tastes like ash. "Very soon." Caius studies him, those dark eyes seeing too much. "You have had her for 2 months. That is not soon. That is hesitation. Perhaps you require assistance. I would be happy to demonstrate how such matters are typically handled." He moves toward Sarah, his hand reaching for her throat. Darius is off his throne in an instant, moving faster than thought. He places himself between Caius and Sarah, his fangs bared, a low growl emanating from his chest. "Touch her and you will not leave this castle alive." The room freezes. The guards tense. Corvus's eyes widen. Caius steps back, his hands raised in mock surrender, but his smile is triumphant. Ah, there it is, the truth laid bare. You do not guard a prisoner, Darius. You guard a treasure. You have fallen for your own captive. How utterly pathetic. Darius's control is a fraying thread. He wants to rip Chios apart, to paint the stones with his blood. But that would prove the accusation. It would show that he has lost himself. Get out. The words are a low, dangerous rasp. Chios bows mockingly. As you wish, but know this, the court will hear of this. Your enemies will smell your weakness, and they will come. He leaves, his laughter echoing in the hall. When the doors close behind him, Darius turns to Sarah. His expression is anguished, furious, lost. Return to your chamber, now. But she does not move. She is looking at him with those clear, seeing eyes. You just revealed everything to him. Your entire kingdom now knows you care about me. I know. Then what will you do? He has no answer. He has spent 80 years building a reputation of ruthless, unstoppable vengeance. And in a single moment, he has shattered it. For her. She steps closer, her voice soft. You protected me. Yes. Why? The question is simple, but the answer is a chasm. He stares at her, this impossible woman who has dismantled his carefully constructed world with nothing but her presence. Because I could not bear to see him touch you. Because the thought of you in pain is more unbearable than any political consequence. Because somewhere in these last 2 months, you stopped being a prisoner and became something I cannot name but cannot lose. The confession hangs between them, raw and bleeding. She reaches up, her hand trembling slightly, and touches his face. Her fingers are warm against his cold skin. Then stop pretending I'm your enemy. Stop pretending you want to hurt me. And start asking yourself what you actually want. What he wants. The question is a grenade lobbed into the fortress of his certainty. What does he want? For 80 years he has wanted revenge. It has been his purpose, his identity, his reason for continuing through the endless nights of eternity. But now, standing in the wreckage of that purpose, he knows the answer. He wants her. He wants to hear her voice every evening. He wants to watch her bring life back to his dead places. He wants to sit in silent gardens under twin moons and feel like he is not alone. He wants to be the man she seems to believe he can be, not the monster he has spent so long becoming. But wanting her means losing everything else, his reputation, his power, his identity as the Blood King. It means choosing vulnerability over strength, hope over certainty, love over hate. It is the most terrifying thing he has ever contemplated. Before he can answer, before he can find the words, a commotion erupts outside the throne room. Shouts, the clash of steel. The heavy doors burst open, and a dozen vampires flood in, led by Chios. They are armed with silver blades, their faces twisted with righteous fury. Chios points at Darius. The court has spoken. You are unfit to rule. You have been weakened by mortal sentiment. I claim this territory and this throne by right of strength. Guards move to defend Darius, but they are outnumbered. Darius steps in front of Sarah, shielding her with his body. He could fight. He could kill Chios and his rebels. But it would be a bloodbath, and Sarah would be caught in the middle. For the first time in his long life, Darius hesitates in battle. Not from fear, but from a desperate need to keep one fragile, mortal life safe. The hesitation costs him. One of Chios's men lunges forward, a silver blade aimed at Darius's heart. Sarah sees it. She moves without thinking, grabbing a fallen sword from a dead guard, throwing herself between Darius and the blade. The silver slices across her shoulder, drawing blood. She cries out, stumbling. Darius catches her, his world narrowing to the sight of her blood, the scent of it, the sound of her pain. Something inside him shatters, not his control, his restraint. For 80 years he has been the monster who feeds on rage, but now rage feeds on him. The Blood King is gone. The creature that takes his place is something far more primal, far more terrifying. He is a force of nature, a hurricane of fury and grief and desperate, violent love. He moves through Caius's men like death incarnate, faster than they can see, stronger than they can imagine. He is not fighting to kill. He is fighting to protect. And that makes him unstoppable. Within minutes, it is over. Caius's men are dead or fleeing. Caius himself is on his knees, a bloody wreck, staring up at Darius with genuine terror. "You were wrong," Darius says, his voice cold and final. "I have not grown weak. I have found something worth protecting. And that makes me more dangerous than I have ever been." He snaps Caius's neck with a casual twist and lets the body fall. Then he turns back to Sarah. She is pale, bleeding, but alive. He lifts her gently, cradling her against his chest. "I need to feed you my blood. It will heal you." She nods weakly, trusting him. He bites his own wrist, tearing the skin, and presses it to her lips. "Drink." She does. The taste is bitter, cold, but power floods through her. The wound on her shoulder begins to close, the pain fading. When she has taken enough, he pulls his wrist away. It heals instantly. "You saved me," he whispers, his voice broken. "Why?" "Because I don't like to see things die if I can help it, even monsters." She gives him a faint smile. "Besides, you were finally starting to become tolerable." He almost laughs. It is a sound he has not made in decades, rusty and unfamiliar. He carries her from the throne room, past the bodies, past the shocked and silent servants, up the winding stairs to her chamber. He lays her gently on the bed. "Rest. I will stay." He sits in a chair beside her bed, keeping watch as she drifts into sleep. And for the first time in 80 years, Darius feels something other than rage or emptiness. He feels purpose. Not the hollow purpose of revenge, but the terrifying, beautiful purpose of protecting something precious. The next morning, a raven arrives at the castle. It carries a message sealed with the Hunters Guild insignia. Darius breaks the seal and reads. The letter is from Alistair, Sarah's father. It is short and to the point. "I know where you are. I know you have my daughter. I propose a parley. Meet me at the old stone bridge that marks the edge of your domain on the night of the new moon. I will come alone. We will negotiate terms for her release." The words are a spark thrown into a powder keg. The old rage, the familiar, comforting rage he thought extinguished, flickers back to life. Alistair, the son of the man who killed Valerius. The next link in the chain of blood debt. This is his chance. The culmination of his 80-year wait. He could meet the hunter and finally complete his revenge. He could make Alistair watch as he turns his daughter into a vampire, condemning her to the same eternal existence he endures. He could drain her before her father's eyes. He could have his vengeance, finally and completely. The plan forms in his mind, a bloody and satisfying tapestry of cruelty. But when he tries to picture it, when he tries to summon the image of Sarah pale and lifeless in his arms, his mind recoils. The image will not form. It is a blind spot in his imagination, a place his consciousness refuses to go. All he can see is her face in the garden, her eyes in the moonlight, her hand touching his face. He crumples the letter in his fist, the sound unnaturally loud in the silent room. This is her fault. She has bewitched him, has blunted the edge of his hatred, has filled his head with impossible notions of life and growth. He is a weapon honed for a single purpose, and she has rendered him useless. He has to tell her. He has to see her reaction when she knows her father is coming. He needs something to rekindle his own fire. He finds her in the library. She sits in a high-backed chair by a window, the pale light illuminating the dust motes dancing around her. She looks up as he enters, her expression calm, questioning. He holds up the crumpled letter. Your father has found us. He wants to negotiate for your return. He watches her face, waiting for the predictable flood of emotions. Relief, hope, fear for her father's safety. But her expression remains unchanged, her gaze fixed on him. She is not looking at the harbinger of her potential freedom. She is looking at the man, studying his reaction, gauging the turmoil she has to know is raging inside him. And what will you do? She is not asking about terms or time or place. She is asking about him, about his choice. The question lays him bare. What will he do? The path of revenge is clear, the one he has walked in his mind for decades. But it is a path that now leads over a cliff. The alternative is a fog-shrouded wilderness he does not know how to navigate. He is the man who murdered my brother. There is no negotiation. There is only a debt of blood that must be paid. Your grandfather killed him. Your father carries that legacy, that guilt, through me. Sarah rises from her chair. She walks toward him, closing the distance until she stands directly before him. She looks up into his tormented face, her own filled with a fierce, challenging light. Is that how you will honor Valerius? By becoming the same kind of killer? By destroying something innocent to settle a score between old bloodlines? My family's guilt does not erase just because I am one generation removed. You are not your grandfather. You are not responsible for what he did. And I am not my brother. I am responsible for what I choose to do now. And you've spent 80 years choosing rage over healing. You've chosen to let his death define you instead of letting his life inspire you. From what you've told me of him, of his love for poetry and beauty and life, do you truly believe he would want this? Would he want his memory to be the reason you destroy an innocent woman? Would he want you to become a monster in his name? Her words are silver stakes, each one finding its mark, piercing through the layers of his self-deception. He has told himself this was for Valerius, but she is right. Valerius, who could not bear to see a rose wilt, would have been horrified by this grotesque, obsessive monument to his death. He would have been heartbroken by what his brother had become. The last of his righteous fury gutters and dies, leaving behind only the cold, stark ash of the truth. He was not doing this for Valerius. He had been doing it for himself. To fill the void, to give his endless, empty life a purpose, and that purpose now feels like a shroud. He looks at Sarah, at her unwavering eyes, at the strength that radiates from her, and he knows. The thought of using her as a weapon against her father, of harming her to settle an ancient debt, is no longer just distasteful. It is sacrilegious. It is a violation of the one pure, beautiful thing that has entered his life in centuries. I don't know. The admission is a surrender, a confession of his own profound, terrifying lostness. I don't know what to do. Her expression softens. The fierce challenge in her eyes is replaced by a deep, aching compassion. She reaches out, her hand hesitant for a moment, before she gently lays it on his chest, right over the place where his heart had long since ceased to beat. Her touch is not fire. It is warmth. A small, mortal warmth that seems to seep through his skin, through his ribs, into the very dust of his soul. Yes, you do. You just have to be brave enough to choose it. The night of the new moon is starless and cold. A biting wind sweeps down from the mountain peaks, carrying the scent of pine and old stone. Darius stands on his side of the ancient stone bridge, a black silhouette against the oppressive darkness. He has come alone. Sarah is waiting in the castle, in her chamber, by her own choice. He had offered her the chance to be present, but she had shaken her head. This is between you and him, and between you and your past. I am the reason for it, but I am not the resolution. That has to come from you. A figure emerges from the trees on the far side of the gorge. A man clad in worn leather, a silver-hilted sword at his side, his hair shot through with gray. Alistair. This is the son of the man who haunted his dreams for 80 years. But as Alistair draws closer, stepping onto the bridge, Darius feels nothing. The inferno of hatred he expected to consume him is not there. There is only a cold, weary emptiness, and a fierce, desperate need to protect the woman waiting for him back in the fortress. Alistair stops in the middle of the bridge, a respectful distance away. His face is lined with hard-won battles and deep-set sorrows, but his eyes are sharp, intelligent, and utterly fearless. Where is my daughter? She is safe. Safer than she ever was with you, who raised her to be a weapon in your family's blood feud. Alistair flinches, the verbal blow landing with precision. My father made his choices. I have lived with the weight of them my entire life. I trained Sarah to survive in a world that has monsters like you in it. Your father killed an innocent man, a scholar who had not fed on a human in over a century. He murdered him for glory and for a misplaced sense of righteousness. And I have come to retrieve my daughter so this cycle of violence can finally end. This is the moment, the culmination of everything. Darius could make his demands. He could torture this man with words, make him beg. He could exact a pound of flesh, if not from Sarah, then from her father's pride. But he looks at the tired, grief-stricken man before him and sees not the architect of his pain, but a mirror of it. Alistair is a man ruled by a ghost, just as he has been. They are two old fools, trapped in a cycle of vengeance that almost consumed another innocent life. Darius thinks of Sarah's hand on his chest, of her quiet faith in him. He has to be brave enough to choose. He takes a deep breath, the cold air feeling strangely clean in his lungs. There is no price. The words fall into the silence, and Alistair stares at him, confusion written across his face. Sarah is free to go, if she so chooses. The debt between us is finished. Alistair looks at him with suspicion, searching for the trap. You would let her go? After all this? After bringing her here for revenge? I brought her here to destroy you, Darius confesses, the words a final, cleansing admission. He looks past Alistair, toward the dark shape of the castle on the mountain, where Sarah is waiting. But I was wrong. My revenge was never about you or your father. It was about the hole my brother left in my life. I thought filling it with your pain would make me whole. I was a fool. He meets Alistair's gaze again, his own eyes clear and certain for the first time in an eternity. She is not a pawn. She is not a weapon. And she is not a prisoner. He turns his back on the hunter, a gesture of ultimate finality. She is in the castle. If she wishes to leave with you, the gates are open. The choice is hers. He begins to walk back toward his fortress, each step feeling both heavier and lighter than any he has ever taken. He does not look back. He does not know what Alistair will do, or what Sarah will choose. He has surrendered his power, his vengeance, and his control. All he has left is a fragile, terrifying thing called hope. He has placed his entire world in the hands of the woman he stole, and now all he can do is wait. The walk back to the castle is the longest of his life. Every gust of wind sounds like footsteps behind him. Alistair's, coming to drive a stake into his back now that he has shown such weakness. Or hers, coming to tell him she is leaving. He reaches the massive gates of his fortress and they swing open at his approach. He steps inside, into the great hall, and they close behind him with a boom that echoes like the lid of a sarcophagus. The hall is empty. The servants, sensing the monumental weight of the night, have made themselves scarce. The silence is absolute, a crushing, suffocating void. Has she already gone? Has she run to her father's arms the moment his back was turned, eager to escape the monster and his crumbling prison? The thought is a physical agony, a cold, sharp blade twisting in his gut. He deserves it, of course. He abducted her, threatened her, planned to murder her in the most gruesome way imaginable. Why would she stay? Why would any sane person choose a broken monster in a dying castle over her own family, her own world? He stands in the center of the vast, cold space, a king who has just abdicated his only remaining kingdom, the kingdom of his rage. And he has never felt so utterly alone. He closes his eyes, bracing himself for an eternity of this renewed, even deeper emptiness. It is one thing to be lonely when you have nothing. It is another thing entirely to be lonely after you have been shown a glimpse of what it feels like not to be. He has tasted light, and now the darkness is infinitely more profound. That was a very noble speech. Her voice comes from the top of the grand staircase. He opens his eyes. She is standing there, bathed in the soft glow of candlelight. She has not gone. She has waited. He cannot speak. The relief that washes over him is so powerful it threatens to buckle his knees. It is a tidal wave of emotion in a heart that had been a desert for so long. I heard it all. The stones whisper to those who know how to listen. She descends the stairs slowly, her hand trailing on the cold stone balustrade. You let him go. You let your vengeance go. It was a cage, and you showed me the door. And what now? What will you do now that the ghost is gone? He looks around the cavernous hall, at the dust and the shadows and the oppressive weight of centuries of sorrow. It is a tomb, his tomb. But for the first time, he sees not an ending, but a beginning. He sees the potential for light to fill the empty spaces. He sees a garden that can be brought back to life. He looks back at her, the architect of this impossible hope. And he finally speaks the truth that has been growing in his heart for months, a truth more powerful than vengeance, more terrifying than death. I brought you here to destroy your father. I stole you from your life with the sole intention of breaking you. But you refused. You walked into my darkness and you lit a candle. You made me forget everything except wanting you to stay. The words hang in the air between them, a fragile, desperate offering. He has laid his entire broken, monstrous soul at her feet. She holds his gaze, her own eyes shining with an emotion he does not dare to name. She reaches up, her fingers cool and gentle as they touch his cheek. It is the first time she has ever touched him willingly, with tenderness. The contact is an electric shock, a jolt of life that goes straight to the core of his being. He has forgotten what a simple human touch can feel like. Then ask me properly. He swallows, the simple command feeling like the most important test he will ever face. He takes her hand from his cheek, lacing his cold fingers with her warm ones. He does not kneel. He is a king, and she is not a woman who would want a supplicant. He meets her eyes as an equal. Sarah, my castle is a ruin, and my heart is not much better. But if you would have them, they are yours. Stay with me, not as a prisoner, not as a pawn. Stay and bring this place back to life. Stay and be its queen. A tear traces a path down her cheek, but she is smiling. A brilliant, radiant smile that banishes the last of the shadows from the hall. Yes. It is a single word, but it is the beginning of a new world. The beginning of everything. She stays. Alistair leaves, a confused but relieved man, a truce of bewilderment settling between the hunter and the vampire. And in the castle carved from the bones of a mountain, life begins to return. It starts in the garden, with a single defiant red rose that blooms on a bush they both thought dead. Soon, the fountains flow with clear water, and the halls fill not with silence, but with the sound of her laughter. The servants, emboldened by her presence and his transformation, begin to tend to the castle again. Tapestries are mended, dust is cleared. The kitchens smell of baking bread and roasting meat. Elspeth no longer trembles, but sings as she works. Even Corvus, ancient and set in his ways, begins to soften. He oversees the restoration with the same precision he once used to maintain the tomb. Darius, the monster who forgot his vengeance, learns a new purpose. He learns to tend a garden alongside her, his hands in the soil, bringing life from death. He learns to listen, not just to her words, but to the silence between them, the comfortable quiet of two souls who have found their match. He learns, with the patient, steady guidance of his queen, how to live again. The tomb becomes a sanctuary. The darkness becomes a canvas for a new light. And the king who once ruled an empire of grief now reigns over a kingdom of two, built on the unlikely, impossible foundation of a love that bloomed in the most barren of soils. One evening, as they sit together on the bench in the garden, surrounded by roses in full bloom, she turns to him. "Do you still think about him?" "Every day. But it no longer hurts the way it did. Now when I remember him, I remember the joy he brought, not just the pain of losing him. You gave me that." She leans her head against his shoulder, and he wraps an arm around her, marveling at the simple miracle of her warmth against his eternal cold. "He would have liked you. He would have loved you. I would have liked to meet him. Perhaps, in some way, you have. Everything good that was in me, everything worth saving, came from him. You found those pieces and put them back together." She is quiet for a moment, then speaks softly. "I didn't fix you, Darius. You chose to heal. I just gave you a reason." He presses a kiss to the top of her head, a gesture so tender it would have been unthinkable months ago. "You gave me everything." The garden is alive around them, the castle hums with purpose and warmth, and the Blood King, who spent 80 years as a monster, has finally found his way home. Not to the past, not to revenge, but to this moment, to her. To the impossible, beautiful truth that love can grow even in the coldest, darkest places, if only someone is brave enough to plant the first seed.